Okay, today we have for you a hard rock band from the mountains of eastern Kentucky, Downtrend. They combine heavy southern grooves and melodic hooks. Joining us to chat about the band's latest album, Melody and Madness, let's welcome Josh Crum. Josh, man, how's it going?
Doing good, Rob. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. So yeah, tell us about what's going on with Downtrend, man. You guys are definitely, had your ups and downs. It looks like, I think the band formed like in 2004. You guys kind
Yeah.
of went through some lineup changes from then.
Yeah, we actually, we got signed to a record label on our third gig. And then after getting signed, our singer moved to Florida. And we're from Kentucky. We're an Appalachian band. And it's kind of like, dude, we just got signed. You can't move to Florida now. So we've had our share of member changes, but we've had the current formation together for about 11 years now.
Excellent, excellent. And I really like the track, Punched in the Mouth, very heavy, and obviously very definitely Sabbath influenced, obviously, with that track for sure, as well as a lot of the other tracks.
Yeah, well, you can't hide your influences. You know what I mean? They just kind of come through whether you want them to or not. So
Yeah, so how's shows been going out there? I see you guys have been playing out. You got some shows happening, and you're really getting some traction on this, it looks like.
yeah, the new album, Melody and Madness, is doing really well for us. It's our first full length release in, like, I don't know, since 2013, 12 years. We had released some singles, we'd released some EPs. With the current market the way it is, the album's kind of a thing of the past. But as an artist, you want that album. It's an itch that you just can't explain. So we were working on a new EP, and we had enough material in the can that we were working on. I told the guys, I said, let's just do the full album. We'll do a vinyl release. We'll do the full shebang. And that's just what we did. And we released, it's our first ever album release on vinyl. So we're extremely excited about that. The vinyl's purple, so we're extremely excited about that. Another nod to Black Sabbath, by the way, with the black and the purple. Totally the reason we did that, 100%. Just an homage to Black Sabbath. And yeah, we're really proud of it, man. And it's done really well. And I was also proud, Rob, if I can just keep jabbering on here, about the way we released the album. We literally released every song essentially on its own before the album dropped as a whole.
Yeah, that's definitely the way you have to do it. You know what I mean? I see so many of these bands, they just drop the whole thing. There's like no build up. There's none of that going on. You have to kind of, even though you're like kind of really wanting to get it out there, you got to do the slow roll a little bit, right? You got to do a song, you got to do a video. You got the video out there for Punched in the Mouth, which we have the link to that in our hall of videos at talkaboutrock.com for people to check out that video. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that, right? That's kind of the way you have to do it. And some people are even a little different. They just drop singles until they get something, right? Sometimes that happens too.
And that's kind of what we did. I told the guys, matter of fact, we were dropping singles from this record before the album was finished. I was like, let's go ahead. We got these done. Let's get them mastered. Let's release these individually as we're continuing to finish the album. Let's go ahead and release this stuff and really set our own path of how we want to release this album and forge. There's no set standard in how to release music these days. That's just a fact.
Right. I mean, it's kind of all over the place. Everybody has to kind of try to see what works for them, what works for their sound, and the timing is definitely a big thing for sure.
Yeah. So we released them over the span of about a year, and we had one track left, which was our AC/DC cover, Whole Lotta Rosie. It was the only unreleased track when we actually dropped the album. So it's the only one that didn't get a single per se, because we did release them all singles on all of your streaming sites and stuff, Apple and Spotify and all the things, with the exception of the AC/DC cover. And it dropped with the album. That was the only one. But yeah, I love how we did it. And then, we still did the CDs and all the physical, even though I'll be honest with you, I don't even have a CD player anymore. I love CDs.
Some people don't. I mean, I have everything now. I have CD. I even got a cassette deck out. I got my turntable. I have everything just in case, because some folks are even dropping cassettes here and there.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, they are. And I grew up in that era, so I get it. I get it. But I will tell you, Rob, I've never had a feeling. I've played music since I was 13. Downtrend. I was 24 when the band formed. There's never been a feeling like opening up that vinyl for the first time, though. That
Oh,
was the greatest feeling, man. To see that and hold that in your hand, it was amazing.
yeah. Another thing I wanted to touch on a little bit, and this is obviously concerning a lot of folks nowadays with AI and the music that gets generated from that, and some of the things I've seen on certain streaming services, such as Spotify, created, what we will call fake music
Yeah.
for bands, and it gets dropped on there. I was speaking with Derek Davis from Babylon AD, and I want to keep up on everybody's music, what's coming out. We started talking about a track I saw that got dropped on his profile, a song that looked like he had collaborated with Vinnie Vincent on. And he said, no, this is not Babylon AD music. This was generated by AI, by Spotify. I guess this is something that they're looking into doing. What's your thoughts around that? I think it's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's also that opportunities are limitless. There's so much you could do. We could do a Downtrend track with Ozzy on vocals. I mean, it can be anything you want. You can. It sounds so good. And I got a friend who, I will not lie, he put out a song through AI. He's not a singer. He's not. He did this song completely made up of Garth Brooks album titles and song titles. And I was so prepared to laugh my ass off at this guy's song. And I listened to it, Rob, and it was actually kind of good.
Oh
Like, the
wow!
music was good and the lyrics were
So
good. And
that's a little scary to me. Like that's very scary. Most of the artists I talk to, we kind of agree on the one thing. There's not really a lot of a emotional sound in that AI generated music.
of course, yeah.
Right. So that, I think, for myself, and I think a lot of the fans, that's what's lacking there, and rightly so.
Agreed.
And that's what you're expecting from a human artist, whatever we want to say, right?
Yeah. So are you saying, are they wanting to do like a Spotify separate tab, so to speak, for like AI generated music? Or
Well, I don't know what the plan's going to be. Like I said, when I spoke with Derek, he comes out, he looks at his Spotify profile, and sure enough, there's a song under Babylon AD's profile with this track, which
wow.
looks like he had collaborated with Vinnie Vincent, right? And he's like, no, this is fake. This is, we've been on the phone with our management, with Spotify, and they got it taken down. It got pulled down. But then I've seen some news articles come out about this with Spotify, and this is something they might start trying to do. And I don't know if this is wrapped up in their agreements, right, with the record companies, allowing them to be able to do that with these people on their platform. But it's a little crazy. When I saw that, I was really taken back.
But let's be honest, if there's money to be made, they'll do it.
Yeah, I mean that's right. That's the bottom line with that. I mean, on the one hand, I love all the streaming services because we have access to that music that we love, that we want to hear all the time. It's always there for us. You know what I mean? But on the other hand, all these artists are just getting shortchanged by these record companies that have just sold them out. They get pennies on the dollar, which everybody wonders why we're paying thousands of dollars for concert tickets, folks. That's why you're paying.
That's why. 0.0006 per play on Apple, and Apple pays better than Spotify does.
Right, they play the highest, and that's crazy.
So it's crazy, but I'm we were talking about this at work actually recently. Like, there's just no value in music anymore. People view it as something that's like an entertainment that's free. Back when we were growing up, not to sound like old men, but you went and you paid $17 for that CD, and even if you didn't really like it, you tried to make yourself like it.
Yeah.
Right.
You listened to it a couple times, right? Definitely a few times you went through it to see definitely if your money was well spent or whatever you want to say, right?
Yep. And you didn't want to give up on it. It's like, oh man, I can't admit I blew it by buying this one. Then eventually sometimes you would come around to the album, or you'd get used to how it sounds, or it kind of grow on you. Now nothing has time to grow on you these days. Like,
everything gets dropped so quickly. I get so much new music sent to me. There's so much stuff coming out all the time. I totally agree with you. People have come to the conclusion like they're just expecting the music to come out to them free at this point. I think going back, if the record companies would have looked at it as, okay, you're our artist, you're on our label, we're going to set up our own site, the artists that we have, in our stable per se, and I'll pay like Warner Brothers, $5 a month or whatever to listen, or whatever it is, to set these up, and that never materialized, right? Apple tried to do it with iTunes. Steve Jobs came out with iTunes. He said, I want to put all your music on there, but it's going to be $1. Are you good with that? And they're all like, no. Well, guess what? Now it's free. You pay your subscription fee to whoever, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But the whole world is like that now, right? Movies is like that. Everything is like that. There's no excitement. There's no build up. There's no anticipation. It's all now, now, now. And if you don't have the instant gratification, you move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody gets their 30 seconds of fame or whatever, viral clip or whatever you want to say about it. The world moves so fast nowadays. That stuff's just kind of crazy with me. But back to the album here, back to Melody and Madness a little bit. Tell us a little bit about writing these tracks and putting this together.
Yeah, we had, like I said, 2 or 3 songs worked out that we wanted to go in and cut. We actually found a recording studio close to home because we self-release everything now. We did 2 songs through the record label back in the 2000s, and that kind of sucked. Sorry if anybody from the label's listening. but then I learned a lot, and I kind of took over. I managed the band as well as play guitar, and we just started releasing all these things ourselves. And had a guy local named John Chaney, and he's like, man, you need to let me record Downtrend. You need to let me record Downtrend. And he'd been in my ear for years about it. We'd even recorded since he had been in my ear with other people. And I don't know why. I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, finally, we went to John to cut a single 3 years ago called Backroads. And he captured us in a way that no one's ever captured us. And it's not close. Like if you listen to our new album and go back to our prior records, it's daylight and dark on quality. Just the sounds. He captured our vibe. It's all there. So I told John, I said, please keep everything for this track. Please keep all the stems and everything, because we're going to do a full length at some point, or at least an EP. I'd like to add it to have a physical release of this track also. So that it all kind of began with that. And then last year we went in and had 2 or 3 more songs written. And one was even a song, it's called Just Walk Away. The music for that was the first song Downtrend ever wrote together. Me and Jeremy Chaney, the bass player, we wrote that back in 2004. We auditioned people with that track musically. Our singer, Mike Jackson, has been with the band now for 18 years or something. Mike put his own lyrics and stuff on it, but he'd never even heard it. But it's just a song that Jeremy and I wrote forever ago. But we used that to get the ball rolling creativity, with the creativity, to get everyone kind of jazzed about writing new material and hearing new songs. And so we had 3 or 4. And like I said, I talked to the guys. I said, let's do a full album release. Let's just do it. But I got this vision. Let's release every song as a single to give it its own space and time. But let's do an album. We'll do vinyl. And everyone, the minute you say vinyl to a bunch of metalheads, we're all like, yeah, we're in.
Right.
That's all it took to talk them into it. So yes, that's how it did. So we had 4 tracks recorded. I had written an instrumental piece that I really liked, kind of my little version of D by Randy Rhoads. It's nothing like that. It's not classical, but it's just an instrumental thing. I live in an area called Mud Creek. I grew up in Pikeville, Kentucky, but I bought a house in the county out there. And I always thought Mud Creek had like a creepy name to it. Like it could be a scary movie.
Right.
So I titled the track Mud Creek. And it's kind of like a Rob Zombie kind of vibe or something to that, right?
Right.
And use that to kind of squeeze in an extra track to make it, 9 songs. Because that's just like a 40-minute instrumental, or 40-second, instrumental. But a lot of bands do that kind of stuff, like Ghost. I think you can buy a Ghost record and it'll only have 6 songs on it and 3 instrumentals, and the album lasts 35 minutes. But we did that and we had those finished. And then once the band agreed, yeah, let's do a full-length release, we had to finish writing 3 or 4 more, and those were literally written in the studio. When you hear the vocals for Punched in the Mouth, the track you were just talking about, which was the last single released before album, those lyrics were literally written the night before they were tracked. and they were tracked, and we changed the melodies a few times during tracking, but they were literally tracked and recorded as we was writing it.
Nice, nice. Another question I have for you. I always like to know about the current climate of where you're located, especially with releasing new original music, right? Which is so difficult nowadays with the plethora of tribute bands. It's still going pretty strong with
Yeah.
people. New music, new original music is so hard to kind of break through on. What's the current climate like where you're located, and what is that like in your area?
It's rough. It's rough. We live in the mountains of Eastern Kentucky, so you can probably tell by my accent, we're hillbillies. We've always traveled a lot. Downtrend's played everywhere from Detroit south. We've been all over the country, but we really have to find our niche because honestly, I live in country music country. Around here, we get gigs locally. It's tough. Um, but we go a lot to Louisville, Kentucky is kind of our home base. We do really well down there. We're in real tight with the Live Nation crew down that way. So we do shows for Live Nation, which is obviously the biggest, ticket broker in the country, right? In the world.
They
Right?
own and control so many venues.
Everything.
It's just crazy. I was reading about trying to take a little left turn about that, but Live Nation when was it? I think Pearl Jam started doing their thing against Live Nation back in the day. They wanted to lower ticket prices. They weren't going to charge these fees, this and that, and they came up against them, and they finally realized these guys control so many venues. It's crazy, right?
It is a monopoly. There's no question. There's no question. But also, once you're in with them, and I apologize, I like this one. I got a little darker. I apologize to the viewer. But once you're in with them, man, it's a cool gig. It's cool to be working with them because they pay handsomely. They treat you handsomely. It's the best gig we get, and we do a lot of that stuff down in Louisville and do really well with them there. So that city's that's a rocking little town, Louisville, Kentucky. And notice my accent, Louisville, Kentucky is how we say it.
That's something. Yeah, but I agree with you. Live Nation puts on great shows. I just saw was it last month or so, maybe 2 months back, 3 Days Grace came through town, and Live Nation brought them here, and that was fantastic. That was a great show. Very, very professional, done amazing, sounded great. They bring a lot of shows through here, obviously, as in all other parts of the US and things like that. But yeah, man, I really dig what you're doing on here. Very, very cool. And we can't not talk about this when I get a chance to talk to you. And for the people that don't know, Josh Crum is my Aussie guru because him and Dan Drago host the Dire the Man podcast, which is one of the podcasts I started listening to when I started this show. I wanted to kind of get a feel for different podcasts and look who was really focusing on different artists. And you guys always did a great job with that show. Just amazing, and even, the Osbournes have said so themselves. You had Jack Osbourne on there talking with you guys. Obviously, unfortunately, Ozzy passed in July. They were just talking. I just seen clips today. They were kind of talking about the last days of things just before that led up to that final show. I'm sure you watched that final show.
Of course, cried the entire time. My wife laughed. She's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "You don't understand."
It's weird, right? I was talking to somebody else about this with another artist, and it's like you feel, because you've listened to this person's music for so long, you feel like you have a personal connection with them. Absolutely. Even though you don't know them personally, you feel like it. Years and years of their album coming out, going to their shows. It feels like there's that same thing with Ace Frehley passing recently. You know what I mean? That was huge. People feel that personal connection with the artist, and I think that bond with the music that's amazing.
You definitely feel like you know them. We opened up for Ace Frehley one time, which, by the way, was a huge highlight for us to get to play with Ace, and it was great. He sound checked twice that day because it was the opening night of his tour, and him and his it was the new band. He had just gotten Gene's band. It was the new band. It's probably about 5 years ago. And they ran through sound check twice the entire set. So I watched Ace 3 times that day because I watched both sound checks. Then I watched the show that night, and I did get to meet him. and get a quick picture. But yeah, you do. You feel like you know them. They're like your crazy uncles. And when they die, it hurts. I've come to realize, Rob, I'll never be over Ozzy's death. I don't think any of us really will. Like it, that was the worst. You know, I, I forgot to listen to that podcast a little bit. I've not heard it all yet. But I did hear, I think Kelly was saying how she knew the metal community would mourn, but they were shocked by how much the world mourned it.
Well, they did such a great job, and especially Sharon, right? Just showing his humanity and how he was just a normal, everyday guy who kind of brought him up. But she was the magic management there. That she was the
No
one
question.
that brought him back from all this and had faith in him that he could do this. And just every year he would come out and rebrand himself, with the Osborne show, with interviews, with coming on talk shows, bringing his kids on shows. They just showed his humanity to the world, and that definitely obviously connected with so many people, even if they didn't like his music really.
Yeah. But that's what made him so great. I say this all the time to people when I try. His humility is 100% what made him so great, because he never took it for granted. You hear stories of literally up through his final tours, him, I hope the kids are there tonight. I hope the kids are there. Like, he was never taking it for granted that the crowd would be there. And he would be so humbled to know how much the world mourned his passing, because he did not realize how much everyone loved him. He
Right.
just did.
And as fans, that's so amazing for us to hear that an artist of his stature, of his years, still was like so grateful. I
Yeah.
mean, he realized, he had his life because of his fans, that took care of his family and everything because of his fans, and as fans, it's so great when the artists realize that, and they're humble about that. It's just amazing. Same thing with like Ace, like you're saying, he was always very very grateful to his fans, always very nice. Sometimes he had to cancel some meet and greets. I know people were upset about that. Sometimes those type of things happen, but overall, I think, yeah, but like you're saying, Ozzy's was kind of unexpected. It was like a week after the show and he passes. What the hell?
True. And that was the worst. But things are starting to come out now that he kind of did know. Did you see what Jake E. Lee said the other day on the Chris Jericho podcast? That Sharon whispered in his ear and said he doesn't have long. Have you seen that video?
I haven't seen the whole video yet. No.
Yeah, apparently, Jake and Ozzy had a little bit of a moment to speak, but Ozzy really wanted to speak to Jake longer. But there was just so much going on that day, he couldn't, really find the time.
Yeah.
So Sharon came to Jake and said, Ozzy wants to talk to you. Like, he really wants to spend some time talking to you. So please go back there if you can. And Jake said she whispered his ear, said he doesn't have long. So I think they did know more than we realized, that it was closer than we realized.
I know. I've heard Jake say that he had a good conversation with Ozzy, and he was very happy about that. And as of late in the news that's been coming out, Zach's been saying, that they were talking about working on an album, and who knows, maybe there's some stuff floating around that sometime might see the light of day. I don't know. You're the inside scoop on that. I know that you probably know if there's at least one track kicking around.
I know this much. This is what we know. There was 3 songs recorded for the Patient Number 9 record that have never been released. They featured Taylor Hawkins on drums. I think the initial thought was to do something special with those tracks for Taylor Hawkins passing. So now we were without Taylor, we're without Ozzy, so the songs are that much more special. Zach would be on those also because he recorded all those tracks for Patient Number 9. I do know one subtle thing that I picked up on a few weeks ago. Someone mentioned to Andrew Watt, who of course was the producer and co-writer for Ordinary Man and Patient Number 9, Ozzy's last 2 records. He was asked if him and Ozzy was working on anything at the time of Ozzy's death, and Watt's response was, "I'm not allowed to speak on that," which tells me there was something going on.
Right.
Now, how much, I don't know. How involved, who knows? But clearly, if there was nothing, he would say, "No, unfortunately not." You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right. Because
And,
we're all waiting for the package to come out for the Back to the Beginning DVD, Blu-ray, all these type of things coming out. We know that's going to happen at some point. You're going to see maybe they'll add that in, and it'll be a package deal or something like that. Who knows? I'm sure at some point we'll
for
see something after the families kind of settle a little bit. It looks like there's still. I was surprised they were talking pretty openly about it on the podcast. I really,
yeah.
really was. They were still pretty shook up, and rightly so.
Yeah, so I look forward to hearing the rest of that. I do want to back up a touch. You asked me about Back to the Beginning. He was so freaking good, man. He was so good. When they went into I Don't Know and I heard that voice instantly, it was like, God, he is so freaking. I got chill bumps right now. He was amazing. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Everybody just said, he so wanted to at least try to stand
Yeah,
during some of that. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
but yeah, definitely great sounding show. Probably the one of the most memorable concerts ever. We
I,
finally got a true tribute concert to an artist. At the end of their career, we've missed that with so many
yeah,
folks, right? They missed the boat on Edward Van Halen. Um, I hope they're not going to miss the boat on Ace. I was talking with Steve Brown a little bit from Trickster, his producer on 10,000 Volts.
absolutely.
There's been talk about that. Eddie Trunk brought that up kind of very lightly, during the funeral and stuff. I hope they really do that and don't let it get too far out.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, back to the beginning, the greatest day in rock history. I mean, what was greater than that? It ran so smoothly. The production was amazing. Watching it on television was amazing. It all worked so well. And I think it'll be a blueprint going forward for everybody. I think country's doing this with Alan Jackson now. I'm pretty sure they've announced an Alan Jackson final concert in Nashville with all these other big stars, and I'm sure it'll be in the same vein as Back to the Beginning was, because it was perfect. It was the perfect send off. I expect Aerosmith to do this maybe in Boston, be the American version.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely need to see a definitely big to do, big ending deal, and it kind of looks like they might be gearing up to do that, right?
Yeah,
With the stuff they're doing with Youngblood, which was really, really cool. I really would like to see a good way to kind of end Aerosmith's stuff,
yeah,
touring and stuff for sure, and put a book, put an ending on that.
yeah. They deserve that, and it's people deserve a proper goodbye. That's all these people want. That's all Ozzy ever wanted was a proper send off. And I'm so glad he got it. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction just a few months before that, and everything. It all worked out so perfectly. You couldn't have scripted it better for a movie. I mean, it's just, But you look at like Ozzy's death. It took that long to get him to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like it took
Right.
this long
Or to win a Grammy, or who would ever, I would never have thought being 18 years old or whatever, listening to Diary of a Madman, this guy's going to have a Grammy one day. I would like, no, that's
Yeah,
never going to happen, right?
yeah. So it's crazy. It's maybe the guy that done our mastered our record there. His name's Joe, 2-track mastering. They're out of Philadelphia, and he's on the board for the Grammys. He does like the voting and all that kind of stuff. He's involved in all that shebang. Unfortunately, we didn't get a nomination. So disappointed.
Well, there's always next year, you know that. So what else is coming up with Downtrend? You got shows coming up you want to talk about, or anything else happening?
Yeah, we've kind of laid low the last few months, but we have some shows coming up. We're going to be in Louisville. This is talking about the Mercury Ballroom in March. So we're going to start rolling out some shows probably when spring starts rolling around. We have already been talking about the next follow-up record, or at least a few tracks. The record label, or I'm sorry, Angry J Audio is the studio where we cut the record. They're wanting to do an album of Thin Lizzy covers because the guy who owns it is like a big Thin Lizzy nut, and he just wants to give away studio time to anyone that's willing to cut some Thin Lizzy tracks. So,
Well,
kind of
maybe
have a
we'll see
bang
a
on
Thin
that.
Lizzy cover on the next album,
I
probably,
think there's
right?
a good chance there's going to be a Downtrend Thin Lizzy track coming out before too long. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there'll probably be a Sabbath or an Ozzy cover thrown in there as well. I'm sure, you're very sure.
We've been doing Paranoid live, which I know is so cliche. It's the easy one, but we have been doing that live for Sabbath, and we've always done Symptom of the Universe anyway, like a medley of that instrumental. just so the drummer can show off a little bit because he kind of does it Solfatera style where he's just slaying the whole thing. But we've kind of been mixing that with Paranoid lately to get a little bit of an Aussie moment. Yeah, so but yeah, some Thin Lizzy Downtrend might be the next. It might be the next step.
Very, very cool. Well, keep us in the loop on that. Definitely let us know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, Rob. Absolutely. I appreciate everything you do, man.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, Josh.
Yeah,
All right.
man.
Well, this wraps up this episode of Talking About Rock. Thanks to my guest today, obviously, Josh Crum from Downtrend. And for you folks out there, we hope you're keeping the torch alive and supporting live music wherever you are. Josh, again, thanks, man.
Thank you, Rob.